We are, as far as I know, we're on page 105, which will be 103 for some of us, starting with the title Sheva Nekiim. I think everybody agree that's what we're up to?
Mhm.
So we're going to go clockwise. I'm starting from Vanessa because she's on my top left.
Okay. Once a clean half-sec tahara is produced, one may begin counting the Shiva Nekiim 7 clean days the next day. The basis for a woman who is Niddah counting Shiva Nekiim stems from the Torah's requirement for a Zava to count Shiva Nekiim. Vayikra. And if she becomes purified from her status as a Zava, she shall count 7 days for herself, and then she will be pure.
Perfect.
On a
So we did this in one of the first lessons, talking about the Niddah, the Zava, and the Zava is the one that has to keep the 7 clean days, as opposed to a Niddah who just has to keep 7 days in total. And we mushed it all together, and we're still in the process of mushing it because we haven't gotten to the 5 days yet. But we're in the process of seeing how the current iteration of the halacha developed. So the Sheva Nekiim, rather than just Sheva, comes from the Zav and the Zav, if you recall. And also, I have to always point out that the um, the law that one person is a reliable witness in cases of Tuma and Tahara, right? So for capital
Yeah.
crimes, we need two. But if I tell you this food is kosher, and I'm, generally reliable, then you can rely on just one person telling you that, even though, it's a sin to break Shabbos or eat non kosher or eat something that didn't have, tithes taken from it. But we learn that from this pasuk, V'safra la, she should count for herself. That nobody else needs to be involved. If she tells you she's a Niddah, she's a Niddah. If she tells you she's not, she's not. And that principle is learned here from Niddah, so I always get excited about that. All right. I'll do the second source. On a Torah level, a woman who's a Niddah need not wait 7 clean days, but may simply wait 7 days. Sorry, yes. And ensure that she is clean by the end, as was discussed in the first year in this volume. However, Chazal instituted the practice of Shiva Nekiim for all women with the status of Niddah due to the concern that they might also unknowingly have the status of Zava. According to the Chochmat Adam, the fact that the Shiva Nekiim for Anita is based upon a biblical concern, i.e., perhaps she's a Zava and is required to count Shiva Nekiim on a Deoraita level, has a practical consequence. In his opinion, a woman who's unsure of which day her Shiva Nekiim began and how many days she has counted must be stringent and count the maximum number of days that she may not yet have counted. He bases this ruling upon the principle of Safek Deoraita L'chumra, an uncertainty related to a biblical rule must be treated stringently. Chochmat Adam, if she erred in the counting of the days and does not know how many she has counted, we rule stringently, since it is an uncertainty regarding a biblical rule. And you're thinking, like, how could she not know? Like, she checks every day, or it was Tuesday, but I cannot tell you how busy women are and how likely this scenario sounds to me. All right, Chai, you're next.
Yeah, sometimes women call on the day that they're going to the mikveh. I don't
They're not
know.
sure.
They're not sure. So we actually, I mean, sometimes we can help people remember where were you, where'd you go, whatever, but yeah. How many bedikot must be performed during Shiva Nekiim? A woman counting Shiva Nekiim is obligated to perform bedikot during that time to ensure that she does not bleed anymore, but it is not clear how many bedikot she must perform. The Mishnah in Niddah records a three-way machloket Tanaim concerning one who only performed a bedika on the first and seventh day. The first opinion holds that these two bedikot are sufficient. The second holds that only the days on which the bedikot took place count. And the third holds that only the last day counts, as bedikot must be performed every day. Should I continue the next? Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, so read the source that you just
Yeah.
introduced.
Okay, Mishnah Niddah 10:3, concerning a Zav and Zava, who examined themselves on the first day and found themselves ritually pure, i.e., with no blood, and on the seventh day and found themselves ritually pure, and on the rest of the intervening days they did not examine themselves. Rabbi Eliezer says their presumptive status is one of ritual purity. Rabbi Yoshua says they have counted only the first day and the seventh day, and they must count another 5 days to complete the tally. Rabbi Akiva says they have counted only the seventh day, and they must count another 6 days to complete the tally. The Gemara rules in accordance with Rabbi Eliezer that even Bedikot performed only on the first and seventh day suffice for the entire 7-day period.
Okay, you just introduced the next source, so finish us off and then we'll pass it to
Okay,
Rachel.
Masechet Niddah 7b, and with regard to this dispute, it's taught in a Baraita that Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yosef say the statement of Rabbi Eliezer appears more correct than the statement of Rabbi Yoshua, and the statement of Rabbi Akiva appears more correct than the statement of all of them, but the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer.
So it's interesting, right? They say Rabbi Akiva actually makes the most sense, which is you only have that last day because the first day was a week ago. You don't know what happened in between. I know that today on day 7, but it's not really day 7 because we're making her start again. But on that day, I know she was clean. Now she needs 6 more clean days. That one makes the most sense. But in practice, 1 and 7 together, we're going to assume that everything in between that was also fine. All right, Rachel.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Concerning a
sorry.
zav and a zava, why are we talking about a zav?
So look at the footnotes. Because
Okay.
a zav has the same law as a zava. Or does that answer your question? Or were
But
you
a
asking?
zav is presumably a male?
Yes, but he also is required. So there's in the Chumash, when it talks about a zav and a niddah, it also talks about, a zava and a niddah, it also talks about a zav and somebody who has an emission, like a seminal emission, so ejaculation, a wet dream, whatever it is. And those have parallels. So a zav and a zava both have have to do shev and Nekiim and bring a korban at the end.
So, but what is a male checking for?
Also, I don't know. It's interesting. I guess he also has to do bedikas and see if there's any of this. Meaning, zav and a zav are both sort of pathological. Something's coming out that shouldn't be coming out at this time.
Right.
So I guess he's checking. Has my discharge stopped? He has some sort of
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Rachel.
The number of Bedikot required lechatchila. According to Tosafot, Rabbi Eliezer's allowance for Bedikot on day 1 and day 7 alone applies only in a b'diavad situation, which we will discuss in more details in the next subsection. However, ideally, one should perform a Bedika on every day of the Shev Nekiim. Tosfot Niddah. Rabbi Eliezer says their presumptive status is one of ritual purity. It is evident from here that if a woman counted Shev Nekiim and performed a Bedika on the 1st and 7th day that were found to be clean, that is called a valid counting, provided she inspected herself on the day she stopped bleeding in the late afternoon and performed a hefsek tahara. But lechatchila, it is not effective, and she must inspect herself every day.
Beautiful. So he's also adding in something that we all know, which is, well, we don't all know, and certainly perhaps before Tosfot we weren't as clear. But when we're talking about 1 and 7, we're assuming that, of course, she did a hefsek. All right, Bella, do you have? You're muted.
Although it seems clear from Tosfot that one must ideally perform a bdika every day of Shev Nekiim, Tosfot do not specify how many bdikot should be performed. The Beit Yosef cites some Rishonim, such as the Rambam, Rashba, and Rosh, who hold that one daily bdika is sufficient, while other Rishonim, such as the Semag and Semak, hold that one must ideally perform 2 bdikot daily. Beit Yosef, Yoredea, Siman 196. During all of the 7 days of counting, she must inspect herself ideally once a day. This is what the Ramban, Rashba, and Rosh write, that lechatchila she must do so, and the Hagahot Maimoniot also cites Tosfot saying this. Since they were simply, she must check every day, it seems that even lechatchila, she need not perform abdika more than once a day. Concerning that which our teacher, i.e. the Tur, writes, that the Sefer HaMitzvot writes, one must do so twice. That is referring to what it states in the Sefer Mitzvot Gadol, Semag, the Sefer Mitzvot Katan, Semak, and the Sefer HaTruma, and the Mordechai, citing the Rokeach, that she performs abdika twice a day during the days of counting, once in the morning when she rises from her bed, and once when she goes to sleep in the evening. It seems to me that they derive this from what it states in the Mishnah in the first chapter of Niddah, 11a, that she must inspect herself twice in the morning and at twilight. The Shulchan Aruch cites, in accordance with the most stringent position, that a woman must perform the bdikot twice a day lechatchila. Should I
Okay, so
continue?
you just introduced the next source, so do that
Oh,
next
okay.
source, and then we'll pass it to Vanessa.
One must inspect herself lechatchila twice a day during every day of the 7 days of counting, once in the morning and once close to twilight. Twilight is like shkia?
Twilight. I generally translate twilight as being a shmashot, actually, but yes, what they mean is before Shkia. Vanessa, we're up to you.
Can I ask a very uneducated question, please? Are these rules only pertaining to married women? What does a single woman have to do all this? Like one who is not engaging in sex?
That's a great question. It's not uneducated at all, and it's actually in certain ways. So if the short answer is no, it only applies to married women. So tomorrow, when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, and we have more issues with Tuma and Tahara generally, then everybody's going to need to know whether they're Tameh, Tahor, they're going to be checking, they're going to be, tracking their status, they're going to be all that. But right now, the only people for whom it is still relevant, whether they're Tameh or Tahor, is a Niddah, because that is tied to Isser Veheter of whether she's permitted or forbidden to be with her husband. So an unmarried woman can be Tameh, Tahor, nobody cares. Meaning we're all Tameh. And
Right.
then once you get married, then it becomes much more relevant, and that's when you start keeping track of it.
My goodness, there's so much to know once you get married. My goodness.
Oh my gosh. I always say that when I talk to Kala, like it is a bit shocking. Like imagine you just discovered kashrut at age 25,
Mhm.
Like Nida's not a small thing. It's not like, okay, make sure you turn off the lights by 8 p.m. every night. Like it's a major, intricate, all-encompassing part of your life. And it's just nobody talks about it till then. So it sometimes could be quite a
Overwhelming, my goodness.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank God. Of course. Okay, so
Okay.
we're on the bottom of 107 for me. I'm not sure
Yes.
if you have my version or Chai's version.
Most contemporary poskim accept the position of the Shulchan Aruch, requiring 2 daily bedikot in standard cases where no leniencies are needed. But Rav Mordechai Willig holds that due to concern for irritation caused by multiple bedikot, one should perform only 1 bedika daily during the Shiva Nekiim, even lachatchila. The laws and concepts of Niddah notes and halakha rulings by Rabbi Mordechai Willig. The position of the Shulchan Aruch that requires 2 daily bedikot lechila is based on the Mordecai. That's funny. It is evidence that he is referencing a different social reality in which the women were mostly found at home and had additional assistance in raising children. Thus, they were able to perform additional bedikot in an unpressured environment. In the contemporary setting, however, women are more likely to be found outside the house or in other less conducive situations, and the risk of irritation from a pressurized bedika is greater. Accordingly, the standard of 1 daily bedika, in accordance with the Tur and other Rishonim, is appropriate even lechatchila.
Okay, thank you. The number of bedikot required, b'di'eved. We mentioned above that according to the Gemara, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that bedikot performed on the 1st and 7th day of the Shiva Nekiim suffice to give her a presumption of no longer bleeding. However, the Gemara in Niddah discusses the possibility that perhaps Rabbi Eliezer required only 1 bedika during the Shiva Nekiim at minimum. A dilemma was raised before the sages with regard to a zav and a zava who examined themselves on the 1st day of their 7 clean days and found themselves to be pure, and they examined themselves again on the 8th day and found themselves to be pure. Okay, so they don't have 1 and 7, they have 1 and 8, but they did not examine themselves on the remainder of the days, according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. that if they examine themselves on the 1st and 7th days, they're considered to be pure during the intermediate days as well. What is the halacha? Do we require the 1st and last days of the 7? And if so, here there's an examination on the 1st day, and yet there's no examination on the last day, but only on the 8th day. Or perhaps Rebbe Eliezer requires an examination only on the 1st of the days, and this is sufficient even though there's no examination on the last of the 7 days. Rav said, this case of examining on the 1st and the 8th days is the same as that of examining on the 1st and 7th days, i.e., Rabbi Eliezer requires an examination only on the 1st of the days, and this examination is sufficient even though there's no examination on the last of the days. And Rabbi Hanina said, we require an examination on the 1st and last of the 7, and here there's an examination on the 1st day, but there's no examination on the last day. Consequently, Rabbi Eliezer would not permit a Zav or Zava to count any of the days in this case.
Confused.
Okay, so we agreed that Rabbi Eliezer says 1 and 7, that's good enough, right? But there you have the 1st and the 7th of the Sheva Nekiim. Here, when you have 1 and 8, you have one during the Sheva Nekiim and one outside it. So the question is, maybe he would say that that's the same. Basically, you did a Bedika 2 days separated, and everything in between is considered good enough, and which means essentially really what he's saying is you only really need the 1st day, and the rest of the Sheva Nekiim, sorry, take it back. She only has a Bedika on the 1st day of the Sheva Nekiim. The day 8 means nothing, okay? So if Rabbi Eliezer would say that this is fine also, then that means he really, at the end of the day, only requires one Bedika on the 1st day, and then that last one was, of course, he would say that that situation was okay, right? That situation that we presented before, that the woman only had 1 and 7, or the Zava and the Zava only had 1 and 7. Of course, he would say that okay, because he would have been okay even with just the 1. Or perhaps he says, no, you need both, in which case 1 and 7, sure, he'll take that. But 1 and 8, he wouldn't have taken. He would have said no to that. So if Rabbi Eliezer's position was that you only need hefsek in day 1, then of course, in that situation we presented about the Zav and the Zava who had hefsek 1 and 7, of course he would say that's fine. In this case, maybe he would say that was fine, but maybe he wouldn't, in which case we know that really that was his absolute minimum, 1 and 7, and he wouldn't have tolerated this 1 and 8 business. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
All right. Will you continue for us?
Yeah. According to Rav, it seems that one who performs the Bedika on either the 1st or 7th day has fulfilled her obligation minimally. According to Rabbi Hanina, on the other hand, Bedikot are required on both the 1st and the 7th day. Rishonim dispute which opinion is followed according to the practical halacha. According to the Rambam and Rashba, a Bedika on the 1st day suffices, at least when another one is done before she immerses, even it's after the 7th day is over. While according to the Smag and the Sefer HaTruma, the halacha follows Rabbi Hanina that Bedikot are required on day 1 and day 7. The Shulchan Aruch, in the continuation of the Seif, quoted above, cites this dispute. The first opinion holds that one time is sufficient, while the second opinion holds that even b'diavad Bedikot are required on both the 1st and 7th day. Should I read the source? Okay. Shulchan Aruch, if she only performed a Bedika once during the entire 7 days, irrespective of whether she did so on the 1st day of the 7 or on the 7th day, or one of the middle days, since she performed a Bedika on the day before the 7, i.e. the Hefsek Tara, and she found herself clean, they count for her. But if she did not perform a Bedika during all 7 days, and did so on the 8th day and found herself clean, she only has the 8th day as a counted day, and she must complete the rest, i.e. count 6 more days. Some say that she must perform a Bedika on the 1st day of the 7 and on the 7th day, and one must not be lenient.
So he presents it, but then he sort of summarizes it and says, but really, it's 1 and 7, not 1 or 7. Rachel, you look like you're offline. Oh, no, you're back.
No, I'm not back.
You're
I
not
might be
back?
back
Okay.
in a couple minutes, but the baby just woke up.
Yeah.
Bella, can we?
Yeah, we're here since the Shulchan Aruch, is this? Okay.
Perfect.
Since the Shulchan Aruch appears to favor the second opinion by writing one must not be lenient, it's generally accepted as the practical halacha in nearly all cases. Machon Pua in the Sefer Pua strongly recommends, based on rulings of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Rav Shmuel Wozner, that even one who was permitted by a halachic authority to suffice with 2 bdikot during the Sheva Nekiim should try to perform an additional bdikot during one of the interim days in case she forgets on the 1st or 7th day or stains on the 7th day and is afraid to perform a bdika. This way she will not lose her entire Sheva Nekiim, but only a portion of it. In a case where a woman has difficulty becoming pure for her husband, i.e. she still sees blood when performing many bdikot, she may be lenient lechatchila concerning the number of bdikot, since this is a time of need. It's very important to include a bdika during the interim days as well, such as on the 3rd or 4th day.
Beautiful. Because of what we said, right? So if we say that, let's say you do day 1, you're like, okay, I'm going to do the absolute minimum, 1 and 7, for whatever valid reason. But then something happens on day 7. You forget, you're spotting, you're whatever. So now you really have nothing, according to the Shulchan Aruch's sort of summary opinion, that you should not be lenient, right? And you must have 1 and 7. So now you're in trouble. But if you had something in the middle, then we have a little bit more room to shift stuff around. So let's do maybe 1026. So let's do just those top 2 on page 110, the proper time for Bedikot.
Sorry, I just want to ask a question. So if something happens then, so would your day 3 or 4, whatever you did there in the middle, like that would become your day 1, and then you would try to
So
go
no,
from there? Like how would you play with it?
right. So actually, I think it would allow you, there's certain, I can't remember the number. There's a certain number of days that you can go in between Bedikot. So I think actually it would allow you, even though it would be, let's say 1, 4, and 8, it would still allow you to stretch it out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
it's, sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
Vanessa,
So,
will you give us the proper time?
The proper time for the Bedikot. The Rima writes that the Bedika cloth should ideally be examined during the day in sunlight, which is strong and one can see its natural color. But Bedieved, she may examine it using candlelight. Rema Yora De'ah. The examination, i.e., inspecting the examination cloth, should be done in daylight and not in candlelight. But Bedieved, even candlelight is effective. Rav Shmuel Wozner writes in the Shuri Shavat HaLevi that in simple cases where the appearance of the stain is quite clear, the cloth may also be inspected at night. Shuri Shavat HaLevi. For straightforward questions, when one sees that there is no issue, it is recognizable at night as well. One may also view it with candlelight, but if one is unsure, it should be checked in daylight. When do the Sheva Nekiim begin?
I'm wondering if we should save that for next time, because it's starting a longer set of sources. So why don't we end for today here? Next week, Bezrat Hashem, I'll be in transit, so we won't meet. The following week we will meet. Then the next week I'll be in transit again, and then we'll get back to normal. So this coming week, oh, I'm frozen. Amazing.